16,200 meters of elevation, and it took you 55 hours to complete. How the hell do you finish this race, and how is it like?
So that was really the lowest point of the whole trip. Really, I was like, okay, this is game over. When I arrived in Almera, I decided to stop and eat something real until the last part of the race. And then I was in a valley, and there was nothing. It was just black. I was left and right were two big mountains with like 1,200 meters next to me, and it was just black. There was no single light, nothing. Said, hey, you always ride one chainring in the front. Mike Mono could be a cool name. And I was like, yeah, why not? And that's just why I call myself Mike Mono, because I'm always riding one chainring in the front.
All right, okay, we are rolling. So Mike, thank you so much, all the way from Germany. Thank you so much for contacting me and doing this interview with me. You have a pretty incredible resume that you have sent to me. You recently completed the Badlands race. That was like a 700 odd kilometer race, and you've done it on your Basso Palta 2 Phantom Black. So tell us more about yourself to my viewers here in Singapore who do not know who you are. I know you're pretty huge on Instagram. You have about 100,000 followers. Tell us more about yourself and your cycling journey.
Okay, yeah. I started pretty early in the age of 10 with racing in Germany, and I grew up with a lot of right now cycling stars. I will say they are stars, like the son of Eric Zabel, Rick Zabel is my age group. Jascha Sütterlin, he's riding for Bahrain Merida. He was a long time ago my teammate in the juniors. So we had a lot of races together in the national team. We had some we won some local racing series in Germany together. So yeah, it was a great time to race. And later on, I had a little small contract, a continental professional contract. And I was riding in my first year for Specialized together with Emanuel Buchmann. He was fourth at the Tour de France a few years ago. I was in a team with Kasper Asgreen. He won the Tour of Flanders 2 years ago in 2015. So yeah, that was just about my racing past. Unfortunately, I was not able to stick to big results. I was not bad, but I wasn't one of the best. So if you be at position 30 in the GC, you cannot buy anything from it. So yeah, at one point I had to say in 2015, okay, I will stop with racing. And then I just rode for the Basso factory team for 1 year in 2016. It was called the Basso Bikes, Team Basso Bikes. So yeah, and when I stopped with racing professional, I just had fun again, and it was running pretty well. But then I had a pretty hard crash in the middle of the season with my TT bike when I just crashed into a car, and it took a long time for me to recover from that. I was in the hospital for a few weeks, and yeah, nearly all the bones in my upper body were broken. Basso came back to me and asked me if I want to join them the Eurobike again, because always they ask two riders to join the Eurobike. Maybe for the people that don't know the Eurobike, that's like one of the biggest cycling shows in Europe, where all of the big brands are representing their new stuff. So they asked me to join them again, and when I was in this whole party thing at the Eurobike, I really fall in love with cycling again. So then I stayed there, and a few months later they asked me about if I want to come over to photo shooting, and I went there, and there was another influencer. His name was Mason Hender. He's an Australian cycling influencer, and he was there for Basso because he's a big Italian fan. So he asked me why I'm not starting with Instagram, why I'm not taking any moves to become bigger and stuff like that, because at this time I never thought about becoming an influencer or stuff like this. So I just took the chance, and the people from Basso also, the company made a big change when the company is now run by two brothers. One older one, Alessandro Basso, he studied mechanical engineering, and the younger one, Leonardo Basso, he studied marketing. So these two are now taking over the company over the last years more and more, and this was the time to just have a better social media represents and stuff like that. So they asked me also, because I was sponsored by Basso, if I don't want to increase my activity on social media. So that was the time when Mike Mono was born, and I wasn't really sure about the nickname and stuff like that. So the marketing guy from back then at Basso, he said, hey, you always write one chainring in the front. Mike Mono could be a cool name. And I was like, yeah, why not? And that's just why I call myself Mike Mono, because I'm always riding one chainring in the front. I started with recording my rides. It's pretty funny because there's another big cycling influencer. His name is Safa Bryan. He's sponsored by Scott, and I never saw his videos before. And right when I started with doing my stuff, I saw that he's doing these things also as well. And for me, it was running perfectly over the last years, and it just increased. And I was working as well for Basso during my studies. I'm actually a finished biomechanical engineer. I studied biomechanicals, and I was working for Basso next to my studies for 2 years. I was traveling around in Europe and visiting big shops and giving people insight in the story of Basso, and having 10 bikes with me, and you can test the bikes, and I tell you what's cool about them, what the specs of them, and I really enjoyed my time there.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much for that introduction. So let's go all the way back, right? So you used to race as a pro. A couple of pros. You mentioned you used to ride with them. Could you tell us, how does one become a pro? Like, how do I get into like a UCI team? How do I start racing? I'm assuming you start with very small races in your country, and you work your way up. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. You work the way up, and then you become part of a national team. You make big races. Maybe you are able to do world championships and stuff like that. And the next thing is to look for a team. And I'm not sure how it works in Singapore. If there is like I think there's a national team for sure. And if there are any bigger teams. So normally, if you're riding a world championship or something like that, they come up to you and ask you if you want to ride with them. And then the next step is riding international races. In the category your team is able to ride. So a continental team is able to ride some bigger races if they get invited, or they ride like normal races they have to pay for to go to. So that's the next thing, and then it's just up to you. You just have to win, and that's how it.
Is it? Do you think it's a rewarding career? Is the money worth it? I know it's all fun and games, but if you're riding for a pro, obviously there's a lot of pressure to win. Sponsors are all looking at you. What are your thoughts about that? How was it like for you?
So I wasn't dealing pretty good with it. I had some pretty good times when I had the right mindset. I was able to win anything. But if I had a bad mindset, and that was most of the time common, so I wasn't able to, I was questioning everything what I was doing. So I was like, am I doing it right? Am I pushing too early, too hard? So I was questioning too much, and in cycling it's all about trust, to have a trust in yourself and to know what you are able to do. And that's something really important. And all of the pros are most of the time people that are, they are addicted to racing and to winning and all of those things. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult to sustain the pressure and all of those things. This year, Bob Jungels won Tour de France stage, and he had surgery on his heart. He's like 1 year older than me. He's from Luxembourg. So I don't know him personally, but we raced a lot together in the past in the juniors, all the Nation Cup races that were like World Cups in the juniors. So I know him, and he had a pretty rough time. He was had no results for a long time, for a long period. And then all of a sudden he wins the Tour de France stage, and then, everything is good again. He did not do something for I think for 2 years. He had no results, nothing. And he just had nothing that proves him he's able to, be at the top level again. And then there's no reward, nothing. And then all of a sudden he wins. And then, all the years of struggle are just blown away if you win. That's just crazy. And that the next day, it's already past. You win, and then the next day it's already again. What do you win next, and where you go next? So that's rough, but you have to be made for this.
Right. Okay, cool. So let's jump into your bike today. I know you have 2 bikes. We'll probably do your Diamante SV another time. So today we'll talk about your Basso, which is a gravel bike. It's the Basso Palta. Tell us what do you have on this bike? And I know you did the Badlands with this. We've got a lot of questions around that. It's a crazy race, a 700-kilometer race. But if you could just tell us more about your bike.
Yeah, so the Basso Palta is a gravel bike. I think it was developed in the year. I think it was in 2019 or it was already. I think it was already older. But anyways, this is the second edition. This is the Palta 2. I was already owner of the Palta 1. So I really enjoy having one bike for everything. When I studied back in the days, I had a crash with my older Diamante SV, and it was like with the policy, or it was tough to get the money from the insurance. Sorry, it was a bit struggle, and I studied in the United States mechanical engineering for 1 semester, and I had to fly there and had no bike. So I was like, okay, what I'm going to do? So I asked Basso, and they gave me the Palta 1. And when I was in the United States, I asked a company, Rolf Prima, to give me some 60mm carbon wheels, and they said, yeah, why not? And I had just a pretty normal setup. There was nothing special on it. 1 chainring in the front, then the 60mm wheels, and it was a gravel bike. And it's funny because I have still some Strava KOMs over there with this bike, even if it's a gravel bike. This bike is just like, if you are not going to ride faster than 45 kilometers per hour, this bike is badass. It's so stiff. Sometimes it's too stiff. I was riding it in the winter with SIP 808, and I had to change the wheel sometimes because the bike was too stiff and it was too hard to ride with, because big deep wheels, it takes a lot of power to So my father was at home and building up the bike with the new handlebar, and it was like the handlebar was at my place I think at like Monday, and the race started at Sunday. So it was pretty stressful to mount everything, and with all the cables as well. Yeah, they sent me over a new shifting system because I'm used to ride with Sram. Before I had the Kampa E-car on it, but I like Sram more also because it's easier to have any, if you have any problems, it's easier to get spare parts for like Sram or Shimano than for Kampa E-car, even if a lot of people are riding E-car and gravel. So overall, the E-car is a great shifting system, but I prefer SRAM with the E-tab. So I'm riding the SRAM Axis, the rival at the front, the shifters. I have a mono setup with just a 36 tooth chainring in the front from Garabuk with the melon. Like, I have an oval chainring in the front. 170mm capo crank. That's a pretty cool system. I really like to speak about this a lot because it's so nice. Yeah, this whole system, like if you have a normal SRAM carbon crankset, it happens to my dad. He was riding in the winter with it, and then the bearings get worn out a bit. He doesn't adjust the play very well, and he didn't care at first of it. And when he recognized or noticed that something is not right, already the axle was damaged, and And then you have to, throw the whole crankset in the garbage, because the axle is connected to the crank arm.
So that is your bike that you have on, and like I said earlier, you use this bike to complete the Badlands Ultra, which is a 780 kilometer race, 16,200 meters of elevation, and it took you 55 hours to complete. How the hell do you finish this race, and how is it like?
It's just great. I would recommend it to everyone. It's just, I wasn't really able to prepare for it because of my full-time job. I just did the Everesting this year one time in April. So I was doing it with the mountain bike, and this took me like 12 hours to complete 8,860 meters of elevation. So this was kind of like my preparation for this race. And for sure, the weeks before, I did some long rides, like 270 kilometers with like 4,000 meters of elevation. But just, some little things, and nothing that's you can compare with this thing. You see so many things, and the experience you get there, you normally get in a holiday of 2 weeks. Because, you ride like 780 kilometers through deserts, through remote places where no people are for 4 hours. Sometimes you were just riding for 4 hours, seeing nobody, and just riding your pace and thinking about life, and dealing with all of the things you have. At some points, some parts of your body just hurting, and then you just continue, and after 5 hours riding through, you just don't feel it anymore. So that's just like riding all the time, and keeping up your own pace. And it's kind of like an experience with yourself, and that's also what the race organizer said. It's not about to become first or right in the top 10. It's about the journey, and about having a good time with yourself, and just enjoying yourself and the journey. And that's really what I recognized at the end of the race, at the last 40 Ks. I was the whole time thinking like, okay, I just wanna finish now. I just wanna come home and don't ride anymore. And then you have like 40 kilometers left, and it sounds not much, but then you look on your meters of elevation, and you have like 14,000, and like, okay, I have now to do 2,000 again. And it's just going up for like 40 kilometers straight, and you're just like, okay, I have to deal somehow with this situation. And then you just, as soon as I made my peace with this race, because I was questioning the whole time, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? This is just crazy. What is this race about? What the organizers want to tell me? Because there were so many difficult parts. There were like some flat areas that were so difficult with sand and big rocks. It was flat. For 25 kilometers, you were riding with the lowest gear, with 10 to 12 kilometers per hour, just in the flat, and you're like, what am I doing here? This is not normal. And then a few hours later, you just ride again 2 hours uphill, no shadow, just sun burning on you. And it's just like you really have a good self-knowledge after that.
Did you face any mechanical issues along the way? And were you all alone? Do you have like a support car? How does that work?
No, it's unsupported, but I had like Basso with me. So they were just at some certain points, they were waiting for me to make the video. They were not allowed to help me, so they were just standing at certain point. And yeah, for sure, they were sitting with me and having lunch or something like that, eating with me, making videos, just like, things to create content. When I arrived in Almere, I decided to stop and eat something real until the last part of the race. Why the hell you waste my time like this? 30 minutes pushing the bike through the descent. Why? Yeah, I faced a mechanical issue right at the start. There was a really crazy downhill. I was really lucky that they had some, like lines where you rode that were not so much covered with big stones, because the first downhill, I have the video on Instagram. It was crazy. It was really rough, and I think if you just came from the straight line to the gravel line, I think your wheels or something else would just explode because it was so crazy. And my left shifter just slipped down like 2 centimeters right at the beginning, because I was riding through a hole, and then it just slipped down. So that was the first thing, and then it was like pretty ugly. So I was riding most of the time like a mountain biker with the handlebar combination. It looked so dumb, but I couldn't hold the shifter, and I had just a little mini tool with me that it wasn't long enough to adjust the shifter. So and this was like after 15 kilometers of 780. So that's what was it with my shifter. After this crazy downhill, I had like the tail fin rack. It's just a rack where you can put a lot of things in, and it's different to a saddlebag. A saddlebag is just swinging around. It's pretty difficult to control. Actually, you cannot sprint with it, because it's kind of like shaky. You don't have any. The feeling for the bike is totally different, and never know how it will react. And with this rack, you just have it's so stable. You cannot imagine how stable this feels. You know exactly when you ride pedaling while standing how its behavior is. You know exactly what's happening at the back of your bike. So I had not a lot of stuff in it, but one of the security belts just became loose through the shaking, and then after kilometer 70 or 80, the second one become loose also, and then the whole bag in a downhill. I was just catching some riders, went up, and all of my things just flew out of the bag. And then I had to stop in the downhill, go back, collect all of my things from the ground, put them back, and then catch up the guys again. My battery from my shifting system just died. I actually wasn't able to find my spare one, because I also had problems in the first big desert with the heat. So I wasn't able to eat anything because of the heat. I just wanted to cool down, and then I just stopped feeling hungry. And we know both what's happening if you don't eat and you already have like 200 kilometers of gravel in the legs. Your energy is just increasing. You need more, and then you stop eating. So at one point, it was a really hard time for me. I was riding through a valley. That was actually pretty chill. That was one of the chill parts of the race. But I was thinking in my head the whole time, like, okay, I'm giving up. This is not going to happen. It was a really hard time. And when I just went up to a higher level again, I had to stop and try to eat something. And I was looking in my bag for something that gives me a lot of energy, and it's not so hard to eat, because I had a big bread with me with cheese and banana on it. And I just couldn't eat it. I had no energy to eat it. I was so tired, and my body was working so much that I wasn't able to chew. It was like I looked at it and I wasn't able. I was so tired I couldn't eat. And then I just wanted to start riding again, and then the battery of my rear derailleur was empty, and I was like, fuck. So I stopped and just laid on the ground and did nothing for like 10 or 15 minutes, and I waited for riders to pass me. And as soon as I saw one with a Sram shifting system, I asked him if I can shift 2 or 3 gears with his battery. So he gave me his battery, I shifted 3 gears, and then he just passed me. And then I looked on Google Maps and I saw, oh, okay, it's like 14 km to the next village. So I have to go there anyhow. I don't know why, but I have to make it. So I just continued riding. It was like 14 kilometers with 300 meters of elevation. So that was not that bad. So I just had like a very low cadence, like 50 or 40. And I was just like really pushing hard to make it to this town. And when I was in this town, I was like, okay, now I can get some real food, some spaghetti or any, I don't know, paella. I really don't care what, but I really wanted to eat something real. And then I was in this village and everything was closed. So that was really the lowest point of the whole trip. Really, I was like, okay, this is game over. It's not going to happen anymore. I was in a so deep hole. I was really emotional as well. I was about to start crying. It was like I was done. I was really done. And then the guys from Basso came over and asked me what's going on. How do you want to continue? And I was like, no, this is not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, a lady opened the door, and she had like a bed and breakfast for also some of the organizers. And then I went in the house, and then she made some pasta for me, and I filled up my camel bag and the bottles and everything. And then I was able to charge my SRAM battery. That was the second mechanical issue. And the third one, there were two others. The third one happened at 4 a.m. at kilometer, I think 650 in the morning. So I was riding a long downhill, like half an hour. And then I was in a valley, and there was nothing. It was just black. I was left and right were two big mountains with like 1,200 meters next to me, and it was just black. There was no single light, nothing. You weren't able to see anything. And then I just wanted to sit on my saddle, and I felt like, oh no, the saddle is moving. It feels like it's not any longer, it's not fitting to the seat post any longer. It's loose. So then I was like, okay, I don't want to see what happened to it. I just want to continue riding and maybe later take care of it, but not now. And 1 minute later, my saddle just fell off the seat post. And I was like, oh. So I stopped. And I just looked back, and then the red light just made it changed the color, the saddle, and I was able to see it pretty fast. And also I saw that the metal part where the saddle is laying on was also on the ground. So I collected them both, and I saw that all of the screws still were in place. And I was like, nothing was broken, everything was okay. So I was standing there 4 a.m. after 650 kilometers mounting a saddle in the middle of nowhere, and I had to concentrate so much because I was also already so tired, and it took me like 15 minutes to fix the saddle because I was also shaking and I was like really tired, and it was so micro adjustment to make it really correct and stuff like that. And and 40 kilometers before 50, I couldn't shift to the lowest gear anymore. So I wasn't able to ride the lowest gear anymore. And that was, it was okay. But sometimes I really wish I had one gear more at the mountain, because the last part of the race was brutal. Like climbs with 20% for half a kilometer, 1 kilometer, really steep climbs 3 times. And this really hurted. You had like cadence 30 to 40. It's just like, trying to get through.
I think if you were on a Shimano, it'll be a whole different story, right? Luckily, the SRAM has the battery, so you can just swap them out. Luckily, someone passed by you, you swap their battery in and you change the gears. What happened if you got Shimano, man?
You're fucked. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. I don't think you get anyhow. You can do the same with the Shimano with the shifting. You could just take the cable, plug it in, shift. But then, how do you handle the battery? You need somehow a battery. That's the only thing, and that's crazy. I think the companies, I'm not sure if this is their plan to do it like this, but I think it would be really, really cool if they would have an option to charge their stuff with USB-C or stuff like that, so that you are able to charge it everywhere.
Oh man, you're doing good, huh?
I just need to go up in the town, right? It was just in remote. Everybody was just doing riding
Right.
that I really had problems with.
When I sleep.
Yeah. I was in the group with Fletcher, and then I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. And I had to stop, and I had to shit. Oh man. The last part of the race was just brutal. There were so many hard climbs. Everything was at the end. Yeah, there was no mercy. You had to really push hard at the end. And then it's just over. Even if this was one of the hardest things I've ever done, it was also the best thing in terms of cycling racing I've ever done, and I definitely will come back.
Okay, cool. Wow, we have already spoken for about 40 minutes. We'll go on to the Instagram questions. Okay, so now we'll move on to the Instagram questions. If you guys want to ask your questions, you can follow me on Instagram when you get a chance. Mike, we have two sets of questions, one from me and one from your side. Maybe I'll start with some of the questions that people have submitted on my Instagram. The question is, do you use only I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this word right, BV as a sleep gear? How do you sleep when you're riding?
That's a crazy question. You know, I was sleeping 2 times 45 minutes. And it was a really, you know, badass setup I was riding. I bought in Decathlon some little, I'm not sure how this is called, you know. They were just like some little plastic things where you normally take for camping to sit on, and it had like some strange structure at the back to, you know, compromise a bit your weight. And I just bought 2 of them, and they were like this height. So yeah, they're just like, I don't know if the right name is mattress or something like that. They are just like very thin. They're like this thick, and I just unfolded them, one for the shoulder and one for my ass, and I just laid them under me, and then I slept over with them. So I had like in the race I had like arm warmers, 2. I had like leg warmers on me, and a vest. So that was my setup when I was sleeping in the last night for 45 minutes. I slept on the ground with these 2 little, you know, things. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I slept for 45 minutes. I get on the bike and just continue riding. But yeah, I would recommend to have. Yeah, you know, a lot of people were riding with a BV or the bivac. Like with 500 grams or stuff like that, but then you need a larger setup as well, you know, and then you maybe have to mount it somewhere. And my goal was also to make the bike not too heavy, to have very less that, yeah, you know, you have to carry the weight over 16,000 high meters.
And the weight of your bike is about 8.5 kilograms with everything on?
No, not with everything on. Just the clean bike without the rack and all of the things. I think at the end it was like 9.5, something like that. I told my father to weigh it, but not to tell me the weight because I don't wanted to know it when I'm riding up the hill, like, oh man, I could have saved like 200 grams, stuff like that. So yeah, at the end it was like 9.5 kilograms, I guess, overall, when I remember right. It was, yeah, it was not that heavy, but when you see the first guys, they were try hard. They were really try hard. They had very less, not even as much as me. I felt very heavy with my rack at the end. I was like, okay, I'm I'm way too heavy.
Yeah. So actually, you know, your bike it's about 7,000 euros, and your bike weighs about 8.5 kilograms, just the bike alone. And you've done an amazing journey on this race, and whereas I have an expensive bike, I have all kinds of rubbish on my bike, but I don't even ride 700 kilometers. I only ride like 60 kilometers. So as an ex-pro and someone who has done a lot of races, Does money buy speed? Does a very expensive bike brings you somewhere, or it's just all marketing bullshit?
Yeah, you know, I have and that's kind of a funny thing. I have an old Cervelo S2. I was riding in the juniors with SIP 404, and you know, back in the days there was not a lot of electronical shifting. That was something very special if you had electronical shifting in 2012 or something like that. That was just like for the, you know, that was just future. Nobody was thinking about electronical shifting back then, and this bike was like 6.8 kilograms, 60 millimeter rims, and aero frame. It was just a badass bike. It was fast uphill, it was fast downhill, it was great in sprinting. This bike had everything. And then when disc brakes came up, it was like just, you know, the bike was heavy. And I was like, for me, a bike needs to have 6.8 kilograms. That's fact. For me, this is fact. You feel that the bike is lighter than 7 kilograms. You feel it, especially in the mountains. And that's something, you know, I need a bike. Some people may say that's stupid, but my bike needs to have 6.8 kilograms because this is a whole different experience riding bike. So in the past it was easier to access this because of mechanical shifting, you know, disc brakes. So you don't have to spend a lot of money for a crazy good bike. Now you start with like 7,000 euros just to have like 8 kilograms. And you're like, what is happening here? So somehow I'm like, I really don't understand the trend. And this bike in the past, you know, it's different because there was no internal cable routing. So the bike was it was a totally different experience to ride with a bike like this. The rim brake, when it rains, forget it. Every corner feels like you are going to die because you ride with 70 in a downhill, it rains and you brake and you're like, okay, nothing is happening for 5 seconds. And then slowly it starts to brake. And also the bike is very shaky, but I really like this because that's how a bike should behave. You really need to have a good feeling of your bike and how it handles. And the new bikes, because everything is wider, they just ride straight. That's like a pretty different riding experience because everything is oversized. You don't have a crazy feeling for the bike anymore because it's just right straight and pretty good straight. That's really nice and I really enjoy it. But always when I ride with an old bike, like with the Cervelo or with I had a Basso Diamante when I was a racer, and this bike had like 6.4 kilograms with Campagnolo Coros, DT Swiss wheels, rim brakes. That was just like a totally different story. The bikes were just, you know, in my opinion, rim brake bikes were riding better. But at some places, like in Badlands, that would be a really challenge to ride whole Badlands with cantilever brakes, with rim brakes. Because I'm not sure if you can do it. You had very long downhills. You had to brake a lot. It takes a lot of power in your arms to get the bike to reduce the speed for a long time. And you ride like 800 kilometers with 16,000 high meters. You have to go a lot of meters down as well. And then braking the whole time with rim brakes, difficult. So sometimes I think it always depends. Sometimes I'm speaking with people that live in an area in Germany that's complete flat, and then they say, I don't need disc brakes. Yeah, you're right. You don't need disc brakes in a totally flat area. But if you are living like me in an area with a lot of mountains and you have to face sometimes different, climate conditions with a lot of rain and stuff like that, and you're riding down a mountain, you're always happy to have disc brakes in the rain. You don't need a lot of power to brake, and you always feel safe. With rim brakes, it's always stressful to ride downhill in the rain because every corner, when you just brake too late, you really have to struggle to manage to go around the corner. So I think at some points you are able to buy speed with money, but nowadays to buy speed with money is just like that's not in any relation. You pay like 500 euros for ceramic speed, stuff like that, and you you think you are going to ride like 2 kilometers per hour faster. The only thing I noticed is riding with my Palta gravel bike up to 45 kilometers per hour is great, but if you go faster than 45 kilometers per hour, you feel that the drag is becoming more because, it's a gravel bike and not an aero bike. And when I go on the SV, I feel that it's easier for me to increase the speed up, speed of 45 kilometers per hour. So at some point, you can buy with money speed, but some things are just dumb, Like I'm also a big fan of Fambini because he is really reducing the things to their basic, and he is right with most of the things he's saying with the aero, ceramic speed stuff like this. If you have a pedal stroke, the air isn't any straight anymore. It's becoming turbulent when it hits the pedal or your leg. It's not any straight anymore. It's not laminar, correct laminar. It's not laminar anymore. It becomes turbulent, and then this whole calculation is nonsense. So maybe if you are doing an Ironman, also all the calculations are made to a certain kilometer. So they say in 40 kilometers you will save this and this. Yeah, sure, if you ride the Ironman alone and you have to ride 180 kilometers straight, yeah, sure, your clothing is making a difference. But most of the time, it's just like you ride in a group, you ride in a bunch, in a race or stuff like that. These are things that are just, cost you a lot of money and don't give you any advantage. And that's something I really see becoming strange in the last years. It's not about, having a nice experience anymore. It's just about bikes and showing off, and I have this and this and this. And sure, I like to ride beautiful bikes as well, but I don't like to pay like 10,000 euros for it. I'm in a lucky position because I'm sponsored by a lot of brands. But if you ask me, I wouldn't spend more than 3,000 or 4,000 euros for a bike. I mean, if I go crazy, I would spend 5,000. But for me, a bike for more than 5,000 euros is just like, it's going in the direction of a car. If you don't have a car and you just concentrate on your bike and you make everything with your bike, okay, that's cool. But if you just, it's about having fun with the bike and not going crazy with crazy wheels and stuff like that. Sometimes I really think about the prices are just like, they are not normal anymore. They are just like, when you want to have a good bike, you start with 7,000 euros, and that's just like ridiculous. That's not normal anymore.
Yeah. Okay, we probably pick one more question from my Instagram. So the question is, why do you go with a one bike setup? You said earlier your nickname Mike Mono was because you ride a one bike setup, a mono setup. So is there a specific reason why you chose a one bike setup?
The main reason for it was that after my crash, I did not have any bike left. So I just had my broken TT bike. I gave back my team bike, so I had no bike anymore. And I just had an old Focus cyclocross bike. And the cyclocross bike back in the days had like one chainring in the front. And I just trained the whole summer with one chainring. And then I was like, why do I need a second one? So I really questioned if I need two chainrings. And then I never mounted a second one. Overall, I would say don't do mono. Overall, don't do mono. That's just like, at some point you're going to hate it because, I have like 5 or 6 different chainrings at home and each of them is like 100 euro just to have all the sizes, and you always have to think about, I'm going to this place. Do I need another chainring? Maybe not. And then, it's always a struggle with the gearing. If you want to have a proper setup, you have to build a really ugly bike. You have to make a 52 chainring in the front and a 50 big cassette at the end to have at least a ratio of 1:1. Then you have a good setup. But everything else, like I'm riding, I would not recommend everyone to ride it because if you ride like me, you always will ride above 300 watts uphill. Always cadence 40, always like big gears and always struggling to keep the pace up. So that's also the reason why I sometimes in the summer become so strong, because then I just ride a lot of mountains with a low cadence, and then you get stronger at a certain point. It's not that, not rocket science. You ride a lot of mountains, big gears, it's hard, you become faster. What a surprise.
Yeah. Okay, I've gone through some of the questions that your Instagram followers have submitted. I'll just pick one, but I'll combine a few of it. So this question is regarding the tire clearance and the tires that you use for your bike. So the first question is, which you've probably already gone through, what is the maximum tire clearance on your bike? Which tire suits gravel all round? And what is the perfect tire width for a gravel setup?
That's pretty. Badlands also has some forums and where people showed their setup. So it's pretty individual which setup you're recommending. Some people really like to ride with mountain bike tires. Some people like to ride with very small tires to have a lower rolling resistance. First of all, the Palta got a 45 millimeter tire clearance, so you can go up to 45 millimeter. I was riding most of the time 40 millimeters, but for Badlands, the company IRC sent over some special tires, or not some special, the normal tires. I never heard from this company before. They made their premiere, I think their big premiere. They sponsor a big other YouTuber. His name is the Vegan Cyclist. He was riding with the Belgian Waffle Race, I guess, with the IRC tires. And that was when I first came in contact with them, when I saw that he was riding these tires. And I was like, okay, maybe they are not that bad. And yeah, then they just sent over, through another contract, me some stuff to test. And I had two different tire options for Badlands. I had a 42 millimeter Boken double cross with more profile. So that's actually not normal to ride in a gravel race like this, more profile. Most of the riders had like a diamond pattern in the middle of the tire and some little profile at the sides, at the sidewall. At the end, I was perfectly happy with my setup and I was riding a lot of pressure. As well, the guys from the distribution of IRC, they are actually from Belgium, they sent me over some PTN inlays. So these are some things you put in after you mounted the tire. You put in some it's kind of like a very soft plastic, and this is securing the rim. If you hit the ground or a very big stone, that the rim is not going to damage. I had some Fulcrum Rapid 7 red carbon wheels, so that's something we never spoke about. But these wheels are specially made for gravel. They have round spokes. They are pretty silent at the end. It's not a characteristic for being a gravel wheelset, but anyway, they're pretty silent. And the rim is asymmetric and very wide. You have a 25 millimeter inner rim width, and that is perfectly for gravel, really. You need at least 25 millimeter inner rim for gravel. So for me, 42 millimeters worked very well. I had not the puncture, I had nothing. And the IRC tires did a great job. What I would recommend you are also Terra Speed from Continental. They have two different versions than the normal ones or the Protect. And then you can go up Terra Speed, Terra Trail with a bit more profile. They are pretty good tires as well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mike, we are out of time. Mike, thanks so much.
Yeah, no worries.
I think we've covered quite a lot. Do you have anything else you would like to top up? We have a couple of more minutes left. Just anything else?
Yeah, the bike is like 6,000 to 7,000. I'm not really sure. It's not made for being super expensive. It's just like, a gravel bike that's made for extreme conditions. And I was really happy to ride with the setup. I think one question was if the Levita handlebar is great for gravel. Oh yeah, it's super nice to have, a very clean setup. Also Basso, I think all of the brands are doing it, but it works pretty nice for Basso. They have like the whole thing is called Integra, so you have a special mount for your computer, for light underneath, and this is just it worked perfectly for me. Also with the bags and all of the things, you can buy everything from Basso. So that's something pretty cool for gravel because you have everything from one brand. And yeah, this bike is, to be honest, if you don't have any road bike or gravel bike, buy a gravel bike, buy a second pair of wheels, and just have fun with your bike because yeah, you know, you will not miss a road bike. If I could choose one bike, for me it would be my Palta gravel bike. The road bikes are cool too, but they are not the same like the Palta. The Palta is always like, you know, a fun bike, and it's always great to ride with it because it's so stiff. I did some downhill videos with the Palta riding speeds of above 85 kilometers per hour. So it's not, you know, it's not reducing your speed. So I'm just a big fan. And also, when I ride with expensive bikes, I feel bad about them because every single pothole or hole you hit with it, you feel like and it's always like a bad feeling when you hit a hole with a pair of 4,000 euro wheels and you're like no. And when the bike is not so expensive, it's just like, for me it's more fun because you know that the bike is not it's sure it hurts when a bike you destroy a bike, but it's not, you know, 5,000 euros are easier to handle than 10,000 euros.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Very interesting insights to you, and you know what you've done on Badlands. Very insightful. I hope to see you in Singapore someday. Maybe you can bring your bike down.
Hopefully.
yeah. And maybe the next time we'll do your road bike that you have, and you can tell us more about that.
Sure, why not? So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, again, I'll look forward to you coming to Singapore.
Yeah, I give my best.
Searching all night, can't seem to focus this double sight. This is a tale sworn in a sight.